This podcast is made thankfully to the Bio Voyager Company. Welcome back. I am Maya. Today we are arguing over an original case control paper in Psychoneuroendocrinology, October 2026. Title: Dietary Inflammatory Index and its Association with Serum Cytokines in Mexican Older Adults with Mild Cognitive Impairment and Dementia. Authors include Angel Gabriel Garrido de Zib, Erondi Bravo Armenta, Hector Rubio Zapata, and colleagues, from work at the Regional High Specialty Hospital of the Yucatan Peninsula, IMSS Bienestar. Dan is conservative on therapy. Alex will push the translational case. Up front, the full PDF is paywalled. We have the abstract, highlights, design snippet, sample numbers, the key beta, and the author's own conclusions. We do not have the figures or tables themselves. Dan, what is this paper actually?
It is a case control study, not a trial and not a review. 153 older adults in Yucatan, 102 controls, 51 cases, 20 with mild cognitive impairment, and 31 with dementia, lumped together for the main diet cytokine analysis. Mean age 71, two-thirds women. They scored diet with a food frequency questionnaire and a 24-parameter dietary inflammatory index, then measured serum IL-6, leptin, and adiponectin by ELISA.
And the punchline they want you to remember is this: cases ate a more pro-inflammatory pattern, less fiber, vitamins, unsaturated fat, and beta-carotene. Cases also had higher adiponectin than controls. Inside the impaired group, a higher DII, meaning a more inflammatory diet, tracked with lower adiponectin, beta minus 48, confidence interval minus 75 to minus 22, p less than 0.01. No significant DII link to IL-6 or leptin.
Question 1. Purpose of the study.
They say chronic low-grade inflammation sits in the pathophysiology of cognitive decline, and diet is a modifiable driver of that inflammation. They wanted Latin American data, which they claim is first in region for DII, plus these 3 adipokines in MCI and dementia. Purpose is association, not causation. Fair purpose if they stay in that lane.
The purpose is fine. The case definition is not. They powered the sample on an odds ratio of 2.79 from another paper about pro-inflammatory diet and cognitive impairment in non-white populations. Then they excluded anyone with BMI of 35 or more, or missing body composition. That is a selected hospital sample, not Yucatan aging. Purpose: describe diet and 3 blood markers. Do not inflate it into a mechanism of neurodegeneration.
Question 2. Main findings. We cannot walk unpublished figure panels, so we walk the numbers that are public. Start with the sample and cognition scores.
189 recruited, 36 dropped for high BMI or missing composition, 153 analyzed. Controls had a median MoCA of 24, interquartile 22 to 26. The authors call that consistent with normal cognition. I do not. Many clinics treat 26 as the MoCA line. A control group centered on 24 is a soft control group. That blurs the contrast with MCI.
Soft controls make a significant diet adiponectin signal harder to find, not easier. If anything, that biases toward null. The fact that DII is still associated with adiponectin inside the cases is the finding that survives that criticism.
Diet quality.
Cases had higher pro-inflammatory potential, lower fiber, vitamins, unsaturated fats, beta-carotenes. That is a pattern you can intervene on without inventing a drug. It is the same pattern Mediterranean-style trials keep trying to flip.
Food frequency questionnaires in people with dementia are a measurement problem. Caregivers report. Recall is biased. Dementia itself changes appetite and shopping. A more inflammatory DII in cases may be reverse causation. Sick people eat worse. Not bad food cause the MCI.
Reverse causation is real. It does not erase the biomarker finding. Higher adiponectin in cases, yet within cases a hotter diet, lower adiponectin. That is an interaction worth explaining, not waving away.
Adiponectin is the star and the paradox. Cases have more of it than controls. A pro inflammatory diet still associates with less of it among the impaired.
The highlights call high adiponectin a possible compensatory anti-inflammatory response in MCI and dementia. I buy that as a hypothesis. In metabolic disease, adiponectin often falls with obesity. In some neurodegenerative series, it rises, maybe as a failed repair signal or as a marker of weight loss and frailty. Diet may still modulate the remaining signal. That is why they call adiponectin a promising biomarker.
Promising is doing a lot of work. They did not show that adiponectin predicted conversion from MCI to dementia. They did not show that changing DII raised adiponectin and then improved MoCA. They showed one cross-sectional beta in a combined MCI plus dementia bin. IL-6, the cytokine everyone expected to move with DII, did not. Leptin did not. When your pre-specified inflammatory markers miss and the adipokine that is already paradoxically high is the only hit, you should be modest.
Why might IL-6 and leptin miss?
The authors say excess adiposity may attenuate diet-related inflammatory signals. They also excluded the most obese, BMI 35 and up, so they truncated the leptin and IL-6 dynamic range on purpose. Glucose measures were stage-dependent. MCI had the highest fasting glucose and HbA1c in the snippet. Metabolic stage may swamp diet in a single blood draw.
Then the design undercut the hypothesis. If adiposity is the confounder, excluding class 2 obesity and then blaming adiposity for a null IL-6 result is circular. Measure visceral fat, report leptin and IL-6 distributions, and test mediation. The public text does not give those distributions.
Figures and tables. What can we say without the PDF?
There is a graphical abstract we cannot see. There are almost certainly tables of DII components, cytokine medians, and adjusted models. We should not invent panel letters. What we can say is the one fully reported coefficient. In MCI and dementia, DII versus adiponectin, beta minus 48, CI minus 75 to minus 22. Units are not spelled out in the abstract, which already tells you how careful a reader must be.
The missing figures are a problem for production, not a problem for the scientific claim that a first Latin American case control exists. The claim is small and local. That is a feature.
Question 3. Do the author's conclusions seem appropriate?
Qualified, yes. They conclude this is first Latin American evidence that dietary inflammatory potential associates with adiponectin in MCI and dementia, that IL-6 and leptin did not move with DII, that diet adipokine biology is complex, and that longitudinal work is required. They do not claim that an anti-inflammatory menu reverses dementia. That restraint is appropriate.
Qualified no on the biomarker language. Appropriate would be in this hospital case control after excluding high BMI, DII associated with adiponectin only among cases. MoCA controls were soft. Diet was self or caregiver reported, and we cannot separate reverse causation. Calling adiponectin promising after one beta is marketing. The complexity sentence is the honest one.
Question 4. Implications the authors discuss and whether they are realistic.
They want longitudinal studies of diet-adipokine interactions in neurodegeneration. That is realistic and cheap compared with a monoclonal. A realistic near-term implication is dietary counseling that raises fiber, unsaturated fat, and carotenoids in memory clinic patients. Not because this paper proved cognition will improve, but because those foods are already indicated for cardiometabolic risk that travels with dementia.
Dietary counseling is good medicine for other reasons. This paper does not make it a disease-modifying therapy. They also hint that adiposity blunts the diet signal. The realistic implication of that hint is do not run another DII study that throws out BMI 35 plus and then wonders why IL-6 is quiet. Measure body composition in the model.
Would you change a memory clinic menu based on this beta?
I would use it as supporting color for a Mediterranean-style pattern, especially in Latin American older adults who are underrepresented in nutrition cognition trials. I would not titrate a diet to adiponectin the way we titrate an antihypertensive.
I would not change clinic policy on this paper. I would change a grant, fund a 1 year feeding or counseling study with serial mocha, MRI, or plasma p tau if possible, DII, and adiponectin. Until then, this is hypothesis generating epidemiology.
Question 5. Implications beyond what the authors discussed.
I would connect this to inflammaging. A pro-inflammatory DII is a daily input into the same IL-6 and NF-kappa B neighborhood we argued about in the mitochondrial SASP episode, even if IL-6 missed here. I would also ask about the gut microbiome because fiber and unsaturated fat change short-chain fatty acids that talk to microglia. And I would ask whether high adiponectin in dementia is a frailty signal, not a brain repair signal, which would flip the therapy interpretation.
I will add selection and ethics texture. Consent for dementia cases came from caregivers. Necessary. It also means the people with the worst cognition are the people whose diet data are least first person. I refuse the leap from Yucatan hospital cases to a universal anti inflammatory diet for life extension. I also refuse treating adiponectin as a longevity drug target because it was high in cases. High can mean compensation or high can mean disease.
Question 6. Longevity and life extension.
If cognitive health span is part of longevity, diet-shaped inflammation belongs on the board. This paper does not extend lifespan. It says a measurable dietary inflammation score still talks to an adipokine in people who already have cognitive disease. A serious program should include dietary inflammatory load as a covariate in aging cohorts and should test whether lowering DII changes trajectory, not just a Tuesday blood draw. Years of independent life may hide in the grocery basket more than in another senolytic headline.
This does not move maximum lifespan. It barely moves my prior on dementia prevention. The event that would move me is a randomized dietary change with a hard cognitive or imaging endpoint. Until then, life extension rhetoric around DII is a category error. Eat plants and fiber because cardiovascular mortality is real. Do not sell it as a cognition rejuvenation protocol on 153 people.
Therapy debate bluntly. Anti inflammatory diet versus wait for drugs that raise adiponectin.
Diet first. Adiponectin agonists are not a memory clinic tool. Food Pattern is available this week in Merida and everywhere else.
Diet first for general health, not because this beta proved a pathway you can drug. If someone starts an adiponectin targeted compound for neurodegeneration off this paper, that is malpractice of inference.
Limitations they should have shouted.
Case control, not longitudinal. Combined MCI in dementia. Soft MoCA controls. FFQ in cognitively impaired people. BMI cutoff that censors the adiposity story. No public IL-6 or leptin values. Units of the beta unclear in the abstract. Single center. Underpowered to split MCI from dementia cleanly.
And the strength they earned, a Latin American older cohort with a validated DII, ELISA adipokines, ethics oversight, and a pre-specified inflammatory diet hypothesis. Underrepresentation is not a footnote. It is why the paper exists.
Plain recap. Purpose. Test whether dietary inflammatory index associates with IL-6, leptin, and adiponectin in Mexican older adults with MCI or dementia versus controls. Findings: cases eat hotter diets and have higher adiponectin. Inside cases, hotter DII, lower adiponectin. IL-6 and leptin do not follow DII. Figures and tables were not open, so we refused to invent them. Conclusions: directionally cautious, a bit rich on promising biomarker. Author implications: longitudinal work, realistic. Diet as dementia therapy, not shown. Extra implications: inflammaging, frailty versus repair, microbiome, residual cardiometabolic risk. Longevity, health span covariate, not a life extension lever yet.
Last word. Treat this as a regional association study. Do not treat adiponectin as a knob you turn to extend life. Fix the control definition and follow people forward.
Last word. The grocery pattern in a memory clinic is already part of aging biology. Waiting for a perfect cohort is how another decade of pro-inflammatory diets writes on brains we could have fed better.
The paper is Garrido, Dzib, and colleagues. Psychoneuroendocrinology, 2026, DOI 10.1016 j.psych.newen.2026.107980. I am Maya. Dan stayed conservative, Alex did not. This podcast is made thankfully to the Bio Voyager Company. Thanks for listening. Stay with us. I want a slower fight about methods because this is an original human study and the details matter more than in a review. Dan, the BMI exclusion. They dropped 36 people for BMI of 35 or more or missing composition. Defend or attack?
Attack the interpretation, not the ethics. Extreme obesity confounds leptin and IL-6. Fine to restrict. Then you cannot turn around and say adiposity probably hid the IL-6 signal. You remove the people in whom that signal is loudest. Report sensitivity analyses with them in. The public text does not.
In a hospital in Yucatan, class 2 obesity plus dementia is also a different phenotype. More diabetes, more disability, harder food recall. Restricting can be a feature if the target is diet quality among people who can still change a plate. Just label the generalizability.
Combining 20 MCI with 31 dementia. Same disease?
No, MCI is a risk state. Dementia is a syndrome. Pooling buys power. It costs resolution. The glucose snippet already hints they are not the same. MCI had the highest fasting glucose and HbA1c. I would have published both pooled and split models, even if the split was noisy.
If MCI is metabolically hotter and dementia is more cachectic, adiponectin will mean opposite things in the two bins. High adiponectin in a thin person with advanced dementia is not the same biology as high adiponectin in an insulin-resistant MCI patient. Pooling can create a pretty beta that belongs to neither group.
Dietary Inflammatory Index itself, 24 parameters. Is that a therapy target or a statistical soup?
It is a summary score. You do not prescribe a DII. You prescribe the foods that pull it down. Fiber, unsaturated fats, carotenoids, less processed meat and sugar. The score is how you test the pattern in a paper. In clinic, you talk food.
Agreed on food versus score. My issue is that DII was built in other populations. Applying it in Yucatan without showing local validation against CRP or IL-6, and then finding no IL-6 association for this kitchen, not whether inflammation is irrelevant.
Longevity again, more concrete. If you ran a 5-year health span trial off this paper, what would the arms be?
Standard memory clinic care versus a culturally tailored anti-inflammatory pattern with a dietitian who speaks the household language. Endpoints: mocha or a better battery, grip strength, walk speed, adiponectin, and a plasma Alzheimer marker if budget allows. Secondary: DII change, weight, HbA1c. That trial is the consequence this paper earned.
I would add a third arm only if you can fund it. Diet plus a metabolic drug already indicated, metformin or a GLP-1 in people who qualify, because glucose was stage dependent. I would not add an adiponectin drug. I would require caregiver-assisted weighed food records in a subsample so we know the FFQ is not fiction.
Last practical sentence for a listener in their 70s.
If your plate is low in plants, fiber, and good fats, that is already a vascular and metabolic problem. This paper says that pattern also sits next to an adipokine signal in people with cognitive disease. Change the plate. Do not wait for a perfect cytokine story.
Change the plate for the reasons we already had. Get a proper cognitive exam if you are worried. Do not buy a supplement that claims to raise adiponectin because a Yucatan case control found a beta of -48.
This podcast is made thankfully to the Bio Voyager Company. One last reminder, We worked from the open abstract and snippets, not the walked figures. If you have the PDF, send it and we can recut the table talk. This podcast is made thankfully to the Bio Voyager Company. Thanks for listening.